Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering France and Netherlands finishing in a scoreless draw. We preview tomorrow's European Championship matchups. We'll discuss USA and Mexico's opening games of the Copa America. We'll discuss Ukraine stealing 3 points versus Slovakia and Austria defeating Poland. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the teams that have been most impressive at these European Championships so far. Before we start off, I'd like to ask that y'all like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see, and it also really helps grow the show. So again, the link is GSMC Sports Podcast.net or GSMC Podcast.net. We have to start off with the France-Netherlands matchup that we were gifted to see today. Finished stalemate, 0-0 game. Few opportunities for France. Griezmann had 2 wonderful opportunities. Netherlands had a few opportunities here and there earlier in the game. If they could just get that final pass right, the final finishing touch. But we thought that they ended up scoring the go-ahead goal in the 70th minute. VAR controversially ruled it out. Controversially ruled out the goal, saying it was that Dumfries was interfering with the goalkeeper's ability to dive and make a play on the ball. We'll discuss that a little bit later on the segment, but we have to start off just regarding the game. Now, the game was pretty dull, not the most interesting of matchups in my opinion at these European Championships. Now, early we started off with a nice bang with Frimpong using his pace to run in and create an opportunity for himself, but it couldn't get it to go. Couldn't get the final finishing touch on it. Theo Hernandez was able to make a play. But other than that, it was a pretty dull game in my opinion, a little lifeless. You know, there was periods in the game where I would wander off because it was just not the most exciting end-to-end kind of game that people were, a little bit looking forward to. But I knew this game was coming. I knew both teams were going to be a little bit reluctant to really go for it because I think a point is good for both teams. When you look at France not having their best player Mbappe, him being on the bench but not really being available, they take this result despite the opportunities that they missed to get a goal. In Netherlands, you're looking at this, a point is kind of crucial because you don't want to go into that Austria game having to chase that result to get the win. Getting this point puts you a little bit in a comfortable zone against Austria, in the fact that a point will be enough for you guys, for Netherlands to get through. Austria is going to be the team that needs to open up, and so it was a crucial point for the Netherlands. They don't want to enter that final group game only on 3 points in a situation where you could potentially go home on the final match day. Now with 4 points, it gives you a much better chance, not only needing a draw against Austria, but also the fact that 4 points will more likely than not be enough for a third place team. We won't know till the end, but chances are it'll probably be enough to move on as a third place team. But yeah, overall, dull game, not much going on, and we expect this. I think it was clear that with Dutch, they have a very good defense and their midfield is solid too. But when it comes to attack, they could be a little disappointing at times, especially with Memphis Depay, who was hit or miss, didn't really get on the end of opportunities. Had a few opportunities to run at that back line with pace, but couldn't find the space to get a shot off. Didn't really dominate the game by any stretch of the imagination. I thought Cody Gakpo was pretty lively. I thought he was very direct. Every time when he got on the ball, you thought that he was a danger to do something. I loved how he played, not being afraid to run at defenders, to take a strike. I thought Xavi Simons also played a pretty good game, provided energy. But apart from that, just a very good, solid defensive performance by the Netherlands. Van Dijk, he was a very good sweeper kind of center back, owning his zone. I thought there was there was one play I thought it was really bad defending, and not Van Dijk, but Van Dijk is on. I believe he was defending Thuram, and that space that Van Dijk opened up by going up to defend Thuram opened up a whole space for Rabiot to go through, and it was, I thought Ake should have done a better job in closing that space off. Rabiot was able to get through, and then Rabiot, I don't know why he didn't shoot. It was a one-on-one, but again, you look at it, he's trying to slide into Griezmann. It's a little bit too late. Griezmann not really expecting it at the same time, is a little bit behind him. Griezmann wasn't able to get that into the back of the net. But apart from that, I thought it was a solid defensive performance. That France, they wanted to keep it clean in the back, which they did, and if they could nick a goal in transition, they would have took it. That's kind of the game that they were going for. That's what France has always been under their Deschamps. And they had, two opportunities that I thought, wow, it would have been like the most typical French way. That first opportunity was Griezmann, and then the second one that came in the second half came in another transition. Kante played the ball into Griezmann's path, and poor defending. I believe it was poor defending by Reinders, I believe, that missed the ball. I believe it was Reinders that missed the ball and went straight into Griezmann's path. But it's kind of like Griezmann is expecting that ball to be clear. There was not that much real pace played by Kante. It should have been intercepted. Horrible defending by the Dutch player, and it goes right into Griezmann's path, and he's not expecting it and isn't able to get a clean connection off. It was still a very good save by Verbruggen, and and it is 0-0. And again, good point for both teams. Now we do gotta go back to the main controversy of this game, and it is that penalty decision, or not penalty decision, but that goal missed call. Not missed call, but so Xavi Simons is able to get into the back of the net off of a rebound, and VAR rules it out because it is deemed, so the referee allowed the goal to stand. Then Anthony Taylor goes and have a chat with his assistant, I believe, or he goes to that area. Assistant tells him it is offsides. They blow it on the field of play. They wave off the goal, and then they go to VAR. And VAR takes a long time to make the decision. And, it's something that we really see in the Premier League, VAR taking that long time. It was really interesting. I thought they potentially might have changed the decision because of how long it took VAR to change it, and VAR was not able to change the call. They did not deem that it was a clear and obvious mistake. Their explanation was Dumfries was able to was blocking the pathway of Mike Maignan. But I just want to say, English referees making a mess of a situation again. Every UEFA game up to this point has been pretty clean refereed, and we haven't had any controversial decisions really. Really, to be fair, and VAR has been quick and swift. But the English referees, they come in, and Stuart Atwell and Anthony Taylor. Stuart Atwell was running VAR. They find a way to, they find a way to muck up VAR even in the big stage, the European Championship. So that's a whole different conversation for another day. But it was just interesting that it was the English people that came back, reminded us how poor VAR can be at certain times. But regarding the call, now I was watching it live, and obviously from a Dutch perspective, you have to be very disappointed in the fact that, even if Dumfries is not, let's say Dumfries is quickly, as soon as Maignan makes that save and the rebound goes to Xavi Simons, let's say Dumfries quickly runs up the field and gets away from Maignan. Is he going to be able to stop that shot from going in? No. It was tucked in the corner. I thought he was not able to make that save, even though Mike Maignan had a very, very good game. Was he going to be able to make that save? No, I don't believe so. It was tucked into the corner. So obviously, you know, in those kind of situations where, you know, a potential infraction that didn't really affect play, that being the reason why a goal is drawn out, obviously that's very, very disappointing. Now, regarding the call, whether they got the decision correct or not is a whole different conversation. Look, in my opinion, I was watching it live and I was reading the replays and I thought there's no way that could not be considered offsides. Not because Mike Maignan doesn't have a realistic shot to make that save. That does not matter. That was never my opinion. In my opinion, that should not matter whether or not he has a chance to make a play on it, because that's not part of the rules, you know. Now, part of the rules is, me, when I was watching it, I understood the part of the rules was whether or not the player in an offside position is interfering with his line of play. With this line of sight, like his ability to see where the ball is. Is he interfering with that? I didn't. From what I saw through that replay, he is standing on the side of him, not in front of him, blocking, you know, in between the ball and him. So based on that rule, he did not break that rule, Dumfries. But you know, there's also this other rule that I did not take account for, and that's why at first I thought it shouldn't have been offsides. And does the offside player affect his ability to make a play on the ball? Now, Dumfries is there, standing about about 3 or 4 yards to the left of Mike Maignan, or 3 or 4 meters, or less than like 2 meters away from Mike Maignan. So is he in a position that he stops him from making? It's very subjective. It's very subjective, because you could argue maybe there's enough space for him to make a dive. Maybe there's enough, you know, maybe he's not even really, you know, affecting Mike Maignan at all. It's a completely subjective decision. And maybe, you know, I should have sympathy with VAR, because those kind of decisions take time. But what you can say from the replay is Mike Maignan, he sees that the shot comes in from Xavi Simons. He's kind of leaning towards making the dive. He sees Dumfries being there, and he like slows it down, and then he immediately, as soon as the ball hits the back of the net, he starts, you know, making his case. Now, for me, in my opinion, I think there's a little bit of gamesmanship going on from Mike Maignan. I believe if he believed that he had a realistic shot to make that save, he'll go through Dumfries if he has to make that save. He'll, you know, I think he sees the shot. He realizes it's going straight into the corner. He doesn't have a realistic possibility. In that split-second decision, he says, oh, and then he sees Dumfries in the corner of his eye. He gives himself a way out, starts arguing with the referee. But by the laws of the game, I do think it is the correct call, even though I don't agree with it within the spirit of the game, with the fact that I don't think he can make that save, which we never know, obviously. We never know, but I don't think he's able to make that save. That ball is going into the corner. But if he was, well, you know, that's a whole different conversation. But, that, you know, it was a really frustrating. At the end of the day, it's very frustrating that didn't go in for the Dutch. Now, obviously, Ronald Koeman came out from the game saying it should have been a goal. I mean, we should expect nothing less. Managers, they always have something to say about the official decisions. But I do think they have some sort of gripe here, some sort of, you know, reason to feel a little disappointed. But again, it's still a point that's crucial for them. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will be previewing tomorrow's European Championship matchups.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. this, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed France and Netherlands finishing in a scoreless draw. We move on to preview tomorrow's European Championship ties. There's some interesting ones, some big ones in my opinion. So I don't know if we should go from, let's just go in order. We'll start off with Georgia, Czechia. This is a game both teams will be entering on with coming off disappointing losses. Georgia losing to Turkey in a very up and down, exciting ball game. Czechia, squandered a lead to Portugal, suffered a last minute winner to Conceição. And, it's a game that both teams really have a chance to put their European Championship back towards the right direction. Both teams to have a realistic shot to get out of this group will need 3 points. Is important for both teams. Obviously, Czech Republic is the favorite in this game when you look at just based on squad and talent of this team. I think they're the better team here. I think what the defensive resilience that they showed against Portugal shows that this team is good. But Georgia can put up a fight. I was very impressed with Georgia. They have some attackers. Georgia do. Georgios Mukwadutsi. I thought he played very, very well in that game. He ended up getting that goal as well. I thought he was really, really brilliant. I think Georgia play nice style of play in terms of not being able to attack an opponent. They have their talisman in Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, who was not at his best in that Turkey game. Didn't think he took it over the way I expected him to, but I think he'll be back at his best going up against the Czechs. Now the Czechs, they have quality. When you look at Patrick Schick, when you look at how strong that their defense showed that they can be against Portugal, their ability to play and counter the chances. They created a few chances and counter against Portugal despite not having much possession and not even bringing that many men forward. Shows that they do have quality in the team. They're coming into this European Championship in good form. They won every single game, all 5 games leading to this European Championship. They ended up losing that first game to Portugal, but it was in bad fashion. It was in a very tight fashion. I think they have more than enough talent. They have defensive resilience. I think they come out with this victory here, and I think they come out with this victory and make that final game against Turkey, one of the major showdowns for match day 3, because I really believe that game is, winner goes through to the knockout stages. I think it'll come down to those 2 teams. Now moving on, it'll be Turkey versus Portugal. Portugal really struggled last game against Georgia or against Czechia to really break down the team. Against Czechia over a tight Czechian team. And, I was really concerned with Portugal, how they performed. Not just their inability to break down a team, which is concerning, but defensively, I thought they got caught out in transition. Despite Czech Republic or Czechia not bringing many men forward in transition, not putting more guys forward. I thought Portugal, in the few opportunities that they were countered, I thought they looked very vulnerable defensively. I think the double pivot between Bruno Fernandes and Vitinha was horrible. And I just think it was too slow. The play needed to be a lot more sped up in that Portugal team. and there definitely needs to be a tactical switch from Roberto Martinez. Go back a little bit more to the formation and lineups that he played in European qualifiers where they were so dominant, because in terms of possession, they were the aggressor and all that, but you never really thought that they were really going to be able to break down this Czech team. Even their breakthrough came through an own goal. You never thought they were able to break them down. And, defensively, I think Bruno Fernandes and Vitinha as the double pivot doesn't give you much. Now, Roberto Martinez is looking at this Czechia team and thinking, we're probably going to have majority of the ball. We need the most, progressive midfielders in there. But against, against the Turkey team that I think has a little bit more quality, will strike a little bit more fear in Portugal, I can't see. You gotta bring in someone that can do more of a holding role in that position. Now Turkey is coming off a victory. Arda Güler, what a player, what a talent, such an amazing talent. The confidence he plays with despite being 19 years old is absolutely sensational. I always knew his ability to, he plays for Real Madrid, so obviously he's quality, but I always knew his ability of being able to play in tight spaces was brilliant, but his ability to score that goal, too, I did not see this coming. But there's a big caveat here. Arda Güler is doubtful for that Turkey game against Portugal. He is doubtful. He is physically not 100%, according to Turkish coach, Turkey's coach Vincenzo Montella. And he'll be assessed later on tomorrow before the game. But, it seemed like there's some sort of injury and he's not 100%. And Montella, he would not tell us exactly what the injury was. That is a massive, massive concern, because Arda Güler is their talisman. Despite his age, he's the guy that, Turkey will go through. Now, they do still have the likes of Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who's a very good midfielder, what he's done at Inter Milan. And they have a very solid defense despite, the injuries that they've suffered in center back. But if they don't have Arda Güler, they're just lacking that little bit of dynamism going forward, which could be still concerning. I still think they have overall quality and they really can make this Portugal team pay. But, doing it without Arda Güler does make it that much worse, or that much harder for them. Now, as far as Portugal, and now as far as this game, it's a tough one to choose. I don't trust Portugal. I think there's a clear tier 1 of teams with the likes of Spain, Germany. I'm missing someone. France. Spain, Germany, France. There's a clear tier 1 of Spain, Germany, France. I don't see Portugal in that tier. I see Portugal in the tier of the likes of the Netherlands, the Englands, the Italies, the teams that all, because of their big names, they'll act like they're contenders to win this European Championship. But we know none of those teams really have a chance. I think Portugal is in that facet, not just because of the manager, but also I think the bottle of these players is something I really underestimate. I think Ronaldo in these games, maybe he could be beneficial in being a box striker, but against the better teams, or even against the likes of Turkey, I think he could be found out in the fact that he doesn't press. He provides no really threat in behind, because he doesn't have the pace that he once had. And, a lot of what he does is just simply being a poacher, trying to find the little spaces in between center backs or center back and fullbacks, trying to get a header off, and he needs something a little bit more from a striker. And I think that, I think Portugal, but in this game, I think maybe they can sneak it out. I think it'll be a tight, cagey affair. I think it'll be tight. If I had to say, I'd probably predict a 1-1 draw in sort of that esque. I think Portugal are the favorites, don't get me wrong, but I don't think there'll be much in this game tomorrow. I think Turkey will go in there rather a little bit more conservative in the fact that, especially if they don't have Arda Güler, they'll be comfortable. We go into that final game with 4 points. It puts ourselves in a good position. But we'll see. Then it comes down, in my opinion, this is the game I'm actually looking forward to most. Belgium taking on Romania, in the fact that Belgium really need this game. They're coming off an opening day loss. a lot of people jumped on them saying, yeah, this is definitely done. This team has no chance, all that, blah, blah, blah. I chose them to win the tournament beforehand, so I'm hoping for some sort of, revival in this game. I fully expect it to come because if you analyze the performance in that opening game, the performance was not the issue. The result was. I thought Belgium actually performed pretty well, and they were very unlucky not to at least get an equalizer throughout the game. Now, the lack of cutting edge and the lack of clinicalness, or if that's a word, from Romelu Lukaku was concerning, and something that we've kind of grown to expect. But he has to turn it on. This Belgian team has to turn it on. Now, Romania is a very strong defense and is a team that'll be comfortable. Not possessing not having majority in possession, and defending, and and taking advantage of opportunities in transition and being very, very clinical. They did that against Ukraine supremely. So this is not some sort of game that Belgium should take lightly. Romania is a team that can really threaten them in transition. They'll be clinical, which Belgium are not. And they'll be clinical. So it could go wrong for Belgium, but I think overall Belgium quality is going to be just too much. I think they'll find the breakthrough eventually. They'll get that one slip. They'll get the breakthrough. And if they are able to get the breakthrough, I think it'll be much more smooth sailing for them. They can't go down a goal early and have to put themselves in a position to chase the game, because that kind of puts them, puts the ball in what Romania wanted it to be. It puts the game in their hands, and Belgium cannot do that. They have to, and I think it's very important that they start off with Doku on the left-hand side as opposed to the right-hand side, because he was not as effective. When he got to the left-hand side, in my opinion, he was the man of the match in that second half. Put him on that left-hand side so he can cut in on his stronger right foot. And if Trossard is not able to play on that right-hand side, then bring in somebody else, because, Doku gives you more playing on the left-hand side than Trossard will. That's just the truth. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll be discussing the U.S. and Mexico's opening game of the Copa America tomorrow.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we previewed tomorrow's European Championship matchups. We move on to discuss USA and Mexico's opening game of the Copa America that kicks off throughout this weekend. The Mexicans take on Jamaica tomorrow night. Technically, we're past midnight, so you could say tonight. And while the US take on Bolivia on Sunday. Two games with a little bit different expectations for the U.S. and Mexico. Both expected to win their games, don't get me wrong, but I think U.S. going up against Bolivia, the weakest team in my opinion, and Conmebol, I think they're fully expected, and it'll be a travesty if they get anything less than 3 points. With Mexico, now obviously losing to a fellow CONCACAF tie at this Copa America, that's a huge disappointment. But I think the expectation is, at least amongst the neutral, is that this game is probably 50-50 with this Mexico-Jamaica game. And the fact that, if you really want to go quality, there's not much difference, which is crazy. I never thought I'd see this day where I'd be saying there's not much difference in quality. But the honest truth is, in terms of quality, there's not much difference with this Jamaican and Mexican national team. Now, it's bad for Jamaica in the fact that they're not going to have Leon Bailey which shows, now that they actually, the fact I'm saying this even without Leon Bailey shows the quality of players that they have. But you look at the likes of a Shamar Nicholson, Bobby Divock Reed, which I always messed up saying. Look at a Mikel Antonio. There's some quality players in this team, and this is a team that, in my opinion, should not be underestimated. They're managed by Heimir Hallgrímsson, which is, maybe if you're not within Iceland, you don't know him, but he's a brilliant manager. He took an Iceland national team to the quarterfinals of the European Championship. He also took them to their first World Cup 2 years later. And in that World Cup, they actually, took a point off Argentina in the opening game. So this is a manager that we have proof that he's a manager that can make a team better than the sum of their parts, which is a very good trait to have in a manager, and a very, and for me, that's how I really rank managers. If they're able to do more with less, I think that's what makes you a very, very good manager. No shade to a guy like Pep Guardiola. I still think he's a brilliant manager, but I tend to value the managers like a Mourinho over him. And but this Jamaican national team is very, very strong, and they'll strike fear into this team. They play with pace, they have transition, they have quality now as well. That makes them a deadly team. And Mexico is a team that, we look at and say, yes, they're a little bit of a rebuild in the fact that, they're a little bit in the rebuild in the fact that they've, they got rid of a guy like Raul Jimenez, Memo Ochoa, and Irving Lozano out of the squad. But to be honest, there's still a few players in here in their later 20s and all that. So this is not some youth team that people are trying to make it out to be. There's still some players in the squad. There's still some experience in the squad. But the lack of quality is there. The lack of athleticism, especially in midfield and in defense, is really prevalent. And then in terms of their attackers, really toothless. They don't really have the final finishing touch. They don't have the ability to create space for anybody else besides themselves. And when they create the space for themselves, no real final ball ability. They're all pretty, Mexico is still, in terms of technically, they still have players that are very good with their control and first touch and all that. But in terms of athleticism, the lack of athleticism amongst this Mexican national team is so concerning. And if you're going up against a Jamaican team that has pace, that has grit, that has quality too, not many people are predicting this, or not many people are, talking about how this is a potential upside concern for Mexico. But I really think, this is Mexico are on, in my opinion, Jamaica is probably the favorites in this matchup. I really do. I think Jamaica has as much quality. I think Jamaica's athleticism is better. I think Jamaica's better managed too. They're a well-coached team. And now Mexico are playing this game in Houston and NRG, and the deal. It's going to be 70,000, 80,000 Mexicans in that crowd, and it's going to be a heavy Mexican crowd. But, Jamaica are used to this. They play Gold Cups here and all that, and they've played against Mexico many times, and they know what it's like. Now, it's playing an away game, but this is not playing at the Azteca necessarily. It's an away game, but it's not, you don't have to worry about the altitude of Azteca, and, it's not that bad, but it's still an away game, which, makes it that much harder for Jamaica. But again, the lack of quality for Mexico is there. And you only need to go back to the Nations League a few months ago. Yes, a little bit different teams, but, a little bit different in Mexico. But Jamaica, they played the U.S. and, they didn't have a lot of their good players. Almost a B team for Jamaica going up against the U.S. They're very unlucky. They're up 1-0 on the U.S. for the entire game, and the last basically kick of the game, full time, the U.S. were able to get an own goal on a set piece opportunity. They didn't even create the goal for themselves. It came off a set piece where they didn't even score, and they needed their own goal and push it to extra time, and then eventually the U.S. were able to break through. But really, Jamaica should have got that victory. That same U.S. men's national team, a few days later, went on to completely trounce Mexico. That Jamaica should have beaten in that first game. That same U.S. team went on to trounce Mexico. So it showed this Mexico team is weak. I predict Jamaica are going to pull off this upset. I really do. Now, as far as USA going up against Bolivia, I talked about it. This needs to be a clear victory for the U.S. They need to come in here, and this game needs to be over at halftime. I'm not trying to disrespect the Bolivian national team, but the Bolivian national team went up against a U-23 Mexico, and they really suffered in that game. It finished 1-0, but it finished 1-0 because of the lack of quality from Mexico. This Bolivia team is really, 18 shots, Mexico had, the fact that they were able to win with that very young team, and look, Bolivia, they're a strong outfit, don't get me wrong, and they come from South America, so they're coming off this game with 3-1 loss to Ecuador, 3-0 loss to Colombia. I believe they're bottom of World Cup qualifying number right now. Don't quote me on it. I believe, no, they're second to bottom actually with 1 win and 5 losses. But Bolivia, historically, their ability to get results against teams with more talent than them comes from the basis that they play their games in La Paz with that extreme altitude there. They're not going to have this advantage playing in the AT&T Stadium. This should be a clear victory for the U.S. And, really, if you're looking at it from a U.S. fan's perspective, you're looking at this game with, if you win, if you win, okay, that's good, move on. If you lose, complete utter embarrassment. The U.S. have nothing to gain from this sort of game in terms of respect or perception or any of that sort. This is a game that U.S. is fully expected to win and win in dominant fashion, and U.S. have everything to lose, and Greg Berhalter has everything to lose. This is not the kind of game that'll prove to us whether or not Greg Berhalter is a great manager or not. These are the kind of games that the U.S. managed to squeak past, or maybe even get it comfortable, who knows. But when the real coming comes against the Uruguays or Colombia's or Brazil's, potentially in around the 16, that's when we'll really know whether or not this U.S. team has anything about them. And this game should be over at halftime, and if it's anything less than that, I think there should be big questions asked, and I think Berhalter should not have a job after Copa America if the U.S. find a way to mess up any of these 2 opening games. These 2 opening games should be the most comfortable of games for the U.S. men's national team, going up against a Bolivia and a Panama. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll move on to discuss Ukraine stealing 3 points versus Slovakia and Austria defeating Poland.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed USA and Mexico's opening game of the Copa America. We move on to discuss Ukraine stealing their 3 points versus Slovakia and Austria defeating the Polish national team. Now, Ukraine, they got a massive victory against Slovakia. I can't put into words. After that really bad, disappointing game to Romania, losing that game 3-0, not only was a bad loss in how it happened, but also in a bad loss in terms of goal differential. So we're really looking at this game, especially with Ukraine knowing that they play Belgium in the next game. This needed to be a win. A point was not going to be enough because they had to go into that Belgium game, with at least knowing that they have to win. That's not a good situation that you want to find yourself in. So in the Slovakia, they went up 1-0 early. They were able to get that breakthrough in the 17th minute, but Ukraine were able to hang in there, and then the quality eventually rose through. Because this Ukraine team does have players with ability. They're a good team. They have guys of Dopvik playing an amazing season. Mikhailo Modric, who's not had the best season, but he's raw. He has talent. Zinchenko, we know him, that plays for Arsenal. They're players that play in the big leagues and have very, very good seasons. And but Yaremchuk was the one that was able to score the late winner as Ukraine, as they were able to keep their European Championship alive. And now a loss would have, basically eliminated this team because of the bad goal differential in that first game. But realistically, they needed, realistically they needed a point. But to be honest, they really knew that they needed 3 points, and they were able to get it done. Slovakia, keep in mind, they were coming off a game that they stunned Belgium in their opening match by winning that victory. So they came into this game not with, they didn't come in this game thinking they have a free shot, but they came into this game thinking, a point will be satisfied. We could be good with the point. And they got up early, but they weren't able to. They weren't able to hold on to that lead. Ukraine, they searched for a lot of opportunities to get an equalizer. They actually, let's get this straight. If you go back to the first half, Slovakia dominated the 45 minutes, and it was interesting that Anatoly Trubin came in for Andrea Lunin, who actually had a good season for Real Madrid, made that a mistake in the opening game, and Anatoly Trubin came in and he made some saves important saves that kept Ukraine into this game. And in that first half, they needed him because Slovakia could have put this game away or potentially put it out of reach, but he came in clutch and they were able to get out of there 1-0. But in the second half, Ukraine were able to recollect themselves, and they had a very, very good second half. Mikhailo Modric, I thought he was pretty good in that second half. He was making a lot of clever runs, showing his ability. Shaparenko was able to sweep home Zinchenko's cross to level it up. And then Ukraine's, from then on, Ukraine's really dominated that game. Modric also struck the post. And then Yaremchuk, who came on late, was able to show his amazing technique. That touch was sensational. Just a beautiful, that kind of first touch is a touch that you show little kids to say this is what you need to be in a football player. First touch, what a touch. The first touch sets him up brilliantly, and he's able to slightly knock it right past Dubravka to make it 2-1. Absolutely sensational goal. In my opinion, that's the kind of goals I love seeing. One of the best goals in the tournament, because the way he controlled that ball on the first touch is very difficult, and maybe you don't understand that unless you've actually tried to do it before. But controlling that touch from a ball in the air, and being able to control it and keep it right in your pass to finish it off right away, it's something that cannot be underestimated, and it's a big time play. And to do it in that sort of stage, to get that goal in that situation, whenever your team needs it most at the European Championship, I have to say, I can't give him enough. You cannot give him enough respect for that. That was a massive goal, and great goal by Yaremchuk, and an important goal. Now we continue on with the Austria-Poland game. Now, Austria's coming, both of these teams are also coming off of a loss in the game, and they're both coming off respectable losses, in my opinion, in the fact that Poland, It took them the last few minutes for Netherlands to finally get the winner with Weghorst coming on against Poland. They did that without Robert Lewandowski. And Austria, I thought, played a very, very good against a very, very good game against France. Had a few games, but they were more of the progressive team, and they were not as afraid to play against the likes of Canada, which is, for me, I was very impressed, or against France. So for me, I was very impressed with Austria and what they were able to pull off. But they weren't able to get the victory at the end. They lost to France 1-0, prototypical France game. But, there was a feeling that they got the worst team out of the group out of the way, and now they came into this game. Realistically, 3 points was very, very important because you don't want to go similar with Ukraine. You don't want to go into that Netherlands game, needing to win. Now getting 3 points, you get a draw in that game, potentially that might be enough as a third-place team to get it through. It could be enough. You never know. That's a brilliant position that they found themselves in. Now, in the first half, it was tight. Austria took the lead early on, but Poland were able to find an equalizer, and Ralf Rangnick was able to make some impressive substitutions, show his ability to be a manager, and a very good manager, and those substitutions paid off. Baumgartner was able to get a goal, a brilliant goal in my opinion, and then the substitute that also got into the shooter, Anatrovic, he was able to capitalize on a penalty opportunity. You see, again, this is a very important victory for Austria because 3 points, were so vital in this situation, and they were the better team. They really were, they showed their ability to not be afraid to press up high, win the ball in certain areas. They played very, very fluid. I loved it the way they played. Robert Lewandowski, he was also on the bench in this game. He came on a little bit later on, but you could tell that he was he was not 100%, and it took Austria, and it was Austria who was able to get the late goals, not Poland, as they capitalized. But to be honest, Austria were the more dominant team. They played the better football. They had more of the opportunities. If you look at expected goals, Austria in the first half had 0.56, but in the second half they had 1.34. You saw the level of progression, the substitutions, the halftime adjustments, and they played a very, very good game. And despite having the crazy thing is despite having less possession in that first half, Austria was a little bit slow with it. They had 60% of the ball, but they didn't create much and only had 0.56% of the expected goals. But in the second half, having less than 50% of possession, they only had 46. Poland had a majority of the possession, but they had more chances. They created more chances because they were more intense. They didn't really, they're not a team that possesses a team and is going to pass the ball into the back of the net like a tiki-taka style. They're a team that's not afraid to defend, that are not afraid to press up high, to win the ball high and quickly get an attack going. That's their style of play. They're a very quick, heavy metal team, and it shows that they don't need possession to create chances. In fact, they create a lot of their chances winning the ball off your possession, and they did that again. Very important win for Austria. They proved why a lot of people are really rating this team, and I think they'll make that Netherlands game very mucky. I'm so excited for that game. We should all be very, very excited for that game because, that game is one of the games of match day 3 that we'll all be looking forward to. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we're going to discuss what teams have been most impressive at these European Championships so far. short break here. After the short break, before the short break, we discussed Ukraine stealing 3 points against Slovakia, and Austria defeating Poland. We move on to discuss what teams have been most impressive at these European Championships so far. I think there's multiple ways to do it. I think I'm gonna give you all my top 5. My top 5. Most impressive, or yeah. This is interesting. Interesting because it's changed up a little bit. There's some teams that had a strong match day 1, but not as good match day 2, which is match day 2 is when you really, is when you separate the amazing game 1s from the pretenders. So I'm gonna go. Okay. I'm gonna give you out my top 4. Top 4. No, I'm gonna give you out my top 3 actually. Top three. Because those, I think 3 stand out and the rest are meh. But here's some teams that I did not have in this top 3. England, they've been so disappointing these European Championships. They proved why they will not win it. They have no chance to win it. They have no chance to beat the 3 teams that I'm about to put as my top 3 most impressives. Because number 1, the manager does not know what he's doing. The players, there's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of quality too. I mean, people talk about the amazing quality amongst this team, but we're sitting here debates talking about this midfielders. There's no ball progression within this midfield. Defensively, they have a right-footed left back. They have a right-footed left back, and then their backup left back has not played a game since February. In terms of they have a midfielder, they have a right back playing in midfield because they want to find a way to get him in there, but they're not clever enough to put him where he is his best. Like, let me give you an example. Frimpong, what Ronald Koeman did getting Frimpong in this game against France, he plays him on the right-hand side, but plays him in a little bit of advanced position. That's the cleverness you need from a world-class manager, where you have 2 players, 2 very, very strong right backs, but they're 2 such a quality players, and you can't leave them out. So you find a way to get Frimpong in there in a position that he can be deadly. He's not playing Frimpong in as a striker or something of that stupid nature. No, just because Trent Alexander-Arnold has a lot of quality and can pick a ball doesn't mean you should put him as a 6. He's not a midfielder. Put him in another clever position that you can work with him. Now, I understand he has such talent, and you don't want to waste that talent on the bench. And we'll look back on this 5, 6, 7, 8 years saying, how the hell did Trent Alexander-Arnold be on the bench for these European Championship or the last World Cup and all that? Yeah, I understand that. But if you're going to put him in there where he could be deadly. Now, I wouldn't say you bench Kyle Walker, no. But, you find a clever position like the way that the Dutch used him on the right-hand side, the right side of the midfield. I think Trent could be deadly in that outfit. Not playing as a 6, receiving the ball of a back line back to goal. He's too slow for that. He can't. He's too. And number 1, you have no real movement coming from your wingers, your strikers, no diagonal runs that he can even pick out. Or so what are you expecting him to do? What are you expecting him to do? You take out his best ability to whoop a ball in when you put him in the center. I don't want to talk too much about England, but there's just too much issues for England. They're gonna lose to the first real team that they play in the knockout stage. I didn't have Italy in here because I thought Italy had a good game 1, but were really, really disappointing and just completely outplayed in that second game. I mean, they were really outclassed. They couldn't get their foot on the ball for a majority of that game. So I couldn't really put England in this in terms of most impressive. Netherlands, I think they were already shaky in game 1, a little stagnant in this game 2 against France. I thought, I was impressed with how they were able to, stay with France. But again, this is what France do. So I couldn't really put them in the top 3. And then Portugal, I'm hugely over them. I think they have, that first game was so disappointing. I've talked about my problems with Ronaldo. I don't know if he's the kind of guy that can lead the line for a team to win the European Championship at this stage in his career. I don't trust their manager, Roberto Martinez. I think they have a lot of players that are bottlers. Besides Vitinha, that's the only one that I really trust in these sort of big pressurized situations. So Yeah, I'm clear about Portugal. But my top three teams, in no particular order, obviously France. Now if you look at these two performances that France have given us at this European Championship, you cannot come out of these and say that this French team is been so impressive. They haven't been, but with past knowledge, knowing how France want to play under Didier Deschamps, and just knowing their style of play, and the fact that Mbappe was out the second game, their main talisman, you still have to put them in your top three in terms of teams that have impressed the most, because we know this is the way that France want to play, and we know that they can get results like this. Even in this game that they couldn't really create much going forward, they still have two massive opportunities that they could have had to get that a goal, to make this game a little bit more comfortable. They weren't able to take advantage, so they came out and with 0-0. They're happy with that result, obviously, because they don't want to go into that final game with only 3 points. But this is just the way France play. Now, their performances haven't been great, but this is what we expect from them. France, they're generally more of a pragmatic team in their approach. They love winning the 1-0 type of games because they're willing. They have the discipline and the desire to defend for 85 minutes, be on their back foot. They don't care, and they take advantage in transition with the quality of the likes of Mbappe, Dembele, Thuram, Griezmann, all that. They have so much quality in that team that they're able to be on the back foot, to not have many chances, but they're still clinical with their chances. That's just the France way. They take advantage in transition, so you definitely have to put them. Now the top two, these two teams have been very, very impressive these European Championships. Germany, they've had a dominant European Championship. They start off with a bang against Scotland, 5-1, and huge, amazing performance, but they were allowed to perform that way. When you look at the likes that Toni Kroos had 8-9 years to make a play, so we wanted to see Germany against another team, and they went into Hungary and they played another very, very good game, very comfortable game. They were able to get 2-0. They showed their quality in certain moments. They showed their ability to defend and transition with Rudiger and Tah, which were tested a little bit more. This Germany national team is deadly. With the fact that they're playing this European Championships at home, that makes them an extreme contender. Now, we went into these European Championships, with a relatively unknown, because their performances at the past few international tournaments have been very, very poor. We cannot, there's no two ways about it. But I will say this, if this wasn't a home European Championship, we'd probably go into this game this tournament realistically thinking quarterfinals would be successful for Germany, because of the whole fact that, Germany has not been a team that's really, done well in major international tournaments recently. They were really, really bad in the build-up, besides this last international window, or the international window that Toni Kroos came back in a few weeks ago, where they got the result against France and Netherlands. France and Netherlands. Besides that, they have not. They've been very, very disappointing. They lost games to Japan, Austria. It was just really, really bad. And France or Germany, we would have realistically expected quarterfinals would have been a good performance, because it shows a level of progression. They've been eliminated in the past few group stages, and then the European Championship, in the World Cup, and then the European Championship, they're in the round of 16. So we're just looking at progression with this team, and a quarterfinal would have been progression. Now the fact that it's a home tournament, you always, you got to add a round to it, and an extra round of expectation. So for me, I thought semifinal would have been a good run for them. But the way that they've been performing in these games with Nagelsmann, the dominance, the way the nation is, getting back with Germany again, you have to say this is a team that should, that can really win this whole European Championship. And now the expectation is that they will win this European Championship. And, it's a good time to be a German fan now. Now we'll see them against Switzerland. They have this, they have this $1 million question. Do we rest? Do we not? Do we do this? Do we do not? I think it's very important for Nagelsmann to manage the situation. He has Andrik is already on a yellow. That's something he'll look at. You also have some players that might need rest, blah 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 blah. So it's interesting to see how he approaches that final game, but they're definitely a deadly team. In Spain, in my opinion, the most impressive team in this European Championship because of just the way the dominance. You had two completely different games. In the first game against Croatia, they showed their new ability to play direct, to play vertical, to be vertical, to play direct, to be clinical, to win a game despite being outpossessed. This is characteristics you don't give of the Spanish national team, and they were so good. They were so clinical. They were direct. There's a few opportunities where they could have played the safe ball and going side and back and retaining possession, but their midfielders looked up and played a ball in behind. It was just great to watch. And in the second game, we saw a little bit different against Italy. We saw their pure Spanish ability to be able to control possession, to really pass you to death. And they were able to get the breakthrough there and completely dominate that Italy game. They were able to show us that second game that they still have that Spanish ability to them of being able to pass you to death, but they also have an added element of being able to be vertical and direct. That is massive, massive, and that's what being able to have that sort of flexibility makes the Spanish team a deadly team. So for me, I think they've been the most impressive team at this European Championship. And right now, if I had to say, I don't know if they're the favorites. I think Germany, with being the home team, might be the slight favorites. But, Germany, France, Spain, I think these are clearly the class of these European Championships up to this point at least. And yeah, we're going to have a great knockout stage. And hopefully we get to see these three teams, all take on each other, because the best games, the more amazing games, the better. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. Please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. I also ask you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.